Welcome to Seriously Sus, the podcast that exposes shadiness with a side eye, hosted by Nanette and Miranda. And we're here to uncover true crime trends and internet chaos that makes you question everything. So get your side eye ready, because things are about to get seriously sus.
Content warning. This episode discusses child murder, sexual assault allegations, and racially charged false allegations. Listener discretion is advised.
Editing note from Nanette and Miranda. Before we get into the episode as a whole, this is a very charged episode on so many fronts. Understand that we're coming from a place of honestly just not understanding the world that these situations can occur in. And we hope that it invokes some sort of powerful emotion in you too, because these are things that need to be talked about. And now, on with the episode.
Welcome to Seriously Sus, the podcast where we expose shadiness with a side eye. I'm Miranda.
And I'm Nanette. And today we're tackling a disturbing pattern. Women who commit crimes or fabricate stories and then blame a black man. It's called a racial hoax, and it's not just a lie, it's a weapon.
The racial hoax, crimes, cover-ups, and the cost of a lie. So, before we talk about definitions, before we name cases, let's talk about what happens when a lie has race attached to it.
Because when someone says a black man did it, that sentence doesn't float in a vacuum. It lands in a country with history, with police violence, with stereotypes, and with real consequences.
And sometimes those consequences are immediate. Sirens, manhunts, arrests, and sometimes they last for decades.
This episode isn't about mistakes. It's about how false accusations become weapons. What is a racial hoax? The term racial hoax was coined by legal scholar Catherine Russell Brown. It's when someone fabricates a crime and blames another person because of their race, or commits a crime and falsely attributes it to someone other because of their race.
So why does it matter? Because these lies, they don't just mislead police. They reinforce dangerous stereotypes, they waste resources, and they put innocent people at risk. Russell Brown says that the racial hoax, it endangers communities and it really cements like harmful myths.
Something that really matters here. Racial hoaxes don't require the accused person to even exist. They don't need a name, no face, no police sketch, just a stereotype. That's enough to mobilize police, media, and public fear. And that says a lot about who we are in this day and age.
Ain't that some shit? And the research shows, this works because of how deeply, the criminal black man trope is. It's just, embedded in American culture. So, when someone's under pressure, like financial stress, guilt, fear, this just becomes a fastest way to deflect everything.
The case studies.
Susan Smith. Y'all, I'm probably gonna get a little cranky. I'm gonna try to keep my temper under control, but
you do what you need to do. We're here to talk this out.
Let's slow this way down, because this case isn't just infamous, it's foundational. It takes place in Union, South Carolina in 1994. I'm pretty sure most of us true crime people are familiar with this case.
Most of us were there and remember it happening live on TV.
Right. It was a small town, young white mother, two little boys, Michael and Alex Smith, and a story that, the media and country, we just believed it instantly when she said it. In one of the most infamous racial hoax cases, Susan Smith, she drowned her two young sons by rolling her car into the lake. And for 9 days, she told police that a black man carjacked her and kidnapped the kids. So when she went to the media and she was crying and begging for her child's return, nobody questioned her. Not at first. There was a national manhunt, there was Amber Alerts, there was wall-to-wall coverage. You remember all that?
Absolutely. I remember thinking, how traumatic this must be. And seeing the video, seeing the press conferences of her crying, please bring back my babies, bring back my babies. And
the whole damn time.
Right, and we were all there, our hearts breaking for her, because these were like 2 tiny, tiny little babies.
That's cool.
So for 9 days, the police flooded the area. The suspect didn't even need a name, just a race. Black men across the region were pulled over, questioned, watched, and this was before racial profiling. All they needed to know was it was a black man.
Right, some black dude kidnapped these kids, and now they're gonna pull over it was crazy.
And all of these men that they have pulled over and questioned and put through all of this, of course there were never charges against them, and never were there any apologies. Just suspicion and racial profiling.
Mm-hmm. So, for 9 days, the story dominated national news. Remember, there were candlelit vigils, endless press conferences. We all mourned with her.
But the entire time, the boys were already dead.
Then she confessed. She buckled her sons into the seats and rolled her car into the John D. Long Lake and walked away.
Even now, I just have chills with you saying that. All of these years later.
Like, I'm trying to hold back tears. How could someone...
Right? This is 30 years later, and it still affects us on an emotional level.
Wow, this really is something.
And when she confessed, the country recoiled. But the damage was done. She was convicted of 2 counts of murder and given a life sentence. And that was nowhere near enough for what she did. She was denied parole in 2024. And frankly...
the fact she was even up for parole is disgusting.
She should
never be released.
Or you know what? Maybe let her out. Let her out with the rest of us.
I'm surprised, honestly, she's still alive. What happened to, like, the whole, like, prison justice thing? Like, you killed your 2 babies, which is horrific.
Normally, that doesn't go so well for you there.
And then you had the audacity to blame a black man for kidnapping them.
Had the whole country look... Yes. All right, so Susan Smith's lie didn't just end when she confessed. It was a lie that mobilized, like, the entire system against this imaginary black suspect, and it lived on in the people who were targeted. In the community that had to carry the fear, innocent black men lived under suspicion because of her lie. No apology, nothing to ever undo it, nothing.
And she didn't apologize. And the police didn't apologize. So these poor men... I can't even fathom it.
And also, just like the fact that everyone believed that so easily. Nobody questioned anything. That it was just such an easy lie to make says a lot, I think, about people's biases.
Absolutely. And like decades later, when she faced her first parole hearing in 2024 and the board denied it unanimously, thank God, because they cited the severity of the crime. But the parole denial didn't erase the ripple effect. The case became a blueprint for racial hoax, a lie that weaponizes race to redirect blame and uses the justice system itself as a weapon. And that says so much about our culture.
Especially right now when we're so divided.
Like, this was over 30 years ago, and I believe she could do the same exact thing today, and people would
react the same way.
Exactly.
It's crazy. So, the pattern. Sweden, Todd, and Storrow.
Here's what makes these cases dangerous. They're interchangeable. Different women, different cities, same story.
Yep, 15 years later, the script barely changed. In 2009 Pennsylvania, Bonnie Sweden was facing serious financial trouble. Embezzlement, fraud, identity theft. The walls were closing in. So she vanished, taking her daughter with her. And then she called 911 with an oh-so-familiar story.
Right? She said 2 black men had abducted them. An Amber Alert went out. Media coverage exploded. Parents panicked. And while police searched for this imaginary suspects, Bonnie Sweden was at Disney World.
Motherfucking Disney World! Can you fucking believe that?
Like,
Disney World!
What the hell?
The nerve.
I just don't even...
Well, where she got Disney World money, she embezzled that.
Right? And like, how's she at Disney World claiming she's been abducted? Like,
there was internet.
By the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, that's what abducted you.
I get, like, we weren't in today's standard of, like, wall-to-wall coverage everywhere of surveillance and shit, but, like, Things existed then.
And you're all over the news. You don't think anyone's going to see you at Disney World?
Right?
When the truth came out, it was embarrassing for the system, but it's really dangerous for the community. Like, she later apologized in court to the African American community, acknowledging that her lie fueled stereotypes, but, I mean, that damage is done.
Right? And as someone who's from Pennsylvania, racial issues run deep. So yeah, that's going to be believed so much easier, but it's just so frustrating. Because the apologies didn't undo the fear. They didn't return the trust. They didn't give humanity back to black men in Pennsylvania. It just shows how racial hoaxes don't need violence to cause harm, because the lie itself does the damage.
The next case, it unfolded during a political moment that was already charged with racial tension. Ashley Todd was a campaign volunteer during the 2008 presidential election, and she claimed a black man attacked her and carved a B into her face. I mean, the symbolism was immediate, and the story fit into all the existing fears. But police, they quickly noticed some inconsistencies here. The surveillance footage didn't match, the physical evidence didn't line up, and she eventually admitted the attack never happened. I mean, she was charged with filing a false report and placed on probation.
Right? Well, let's just be honest here. She needed some mental help, because who carves a B into your own face and then blames anybody, let alone black men, for doing it? Clearly she has mental issues.
Right, how does that even pop in your head to be that's the thing I'm gonna do today?
Right? And that's what I don't understand. And that's what's missing from everything reported was why? Why did she do this?
If you can make up any tall tale, why this?
Why carve it in your... I don't even understand where she's coming from.
Dream for sure.
Right?
Do anybody know, did she end up getting mental health help?
I hope she did.
I hope so. Does anybody know? Let us know. I'm going to try and look that up later.
Yeah, because what matters here is, well, not her mental health, but we do hope that she got help, because clearly she needs it. But what matters is how quickly that lie spread and how slowly the truth caught up. It wasn't just personal desperation. It was cultural vulnerability. Again, I don't know what she was hoping to accomplish from this.
She really took it to extremes. I mean, not drown your kids extremes, but, carving your face is pretty up there in the scale of horrible things to try to blame on other people. All right, and then we have the Bethany Storio, and she reported that acid attack. Man, the community was terrified. Acid attacks are rare and horrifying.
And who wouldn't be? I mean, we hear about them all the time, particularly in relation to Middle East, and how women there, for the slightest fault that some man thinks that they've done, and the horrible after effects. So yeah, we're all primed to know that an acid attack is probably racial or sexually motivated. And when she said a black woman had thrown acid on her face, the police began searching for a suspect who didn't even exist.
You kind of knew up front that didn't exist.
Right? So, however, their evidence raised a red flag. The injuries didn't match the story she was trying to sell. Eventually, Dorino admitted that she caused harm herself.
Where does someone even get acid to throw on someone else or themselves? I wouldn't even know where to purchase that.
Right? And again, we go back to the case that we just talked about. There's obviously some mental issues going on with these women who feel the need to do this to themselves and then blame black people. So there's something wrong.
There's so much hatred in their hearts.
Fundamentally, on so many levels, that you want to disfigure yourself and then blame it on somebody of another race. I mean...
trying to start a race war or something. I don't know what they're trying to do. You're going to hurt yourself out of your own hatred? That's crazy.
Right? It just doesn't make sense. And yeah, though this case talks about falsely blaming a black woman, the mechanism's still the same. It's racial fear that travels fast, even when the crime is fake.
I mean, this case didn't happen in the shadows either. It happened on a college campus in real time with real consequences. It's Nikki Jovino. She was an 18-year-old freshman at Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, Connecticut. Biology major. She was a first-year student. You know, she was just trying to find her footing.
And on October 14th, 2016, she attended an off-campus party in Bridgeport. That night, she had sexual encounters with 2 fellow students, both black, both football players. The next day, she went to the hospital. A rape kit was performed, and the police were notified.
So, for more than 2 months, Bridgeport police investigated this case as a sexual assault. They conducted interviews, collected evidence, and, they even coordinated with the university.
And during that time, these 2 accused men, and let's keep in mind, these are young men.
Right, they're college kids.
Right? They're barely in their 20s. They weren't arrested, but their lives were upended. Imagine being 18 years old and going to practice, and suddenly your name is everywhere. So these poor kids, they had to withdraw from school. One of them even lost their football scholarship because they were both living under suspicion. But again, no one was arrested.
And it's extra infuriating because there's so many cases where these girls are actually sexually assaulted, and it just lessens them so much when people make up cases like this. Like, you went to a party, you're young, you hold it out a little bit. It's okay, man, you had a good time. You didn't gotta make a big deal out of it.
That's kind of what college is about.
Right.
You know?
You tried some stuff.
But to ruin lives because you had next day regret?
It's so sad, this poor. Whew. All right. So as that investigation continued, things began to unravel. Witnesses came forward, text messages surfaced, and one of the men had cell phone video from the night in question. So when the police confronted Nikki with all the contradictions, then she finally admitted that the sex was consensual, and she's a liar.
Yeah. So again, like the other cases on here, there's so many levels to this. It's a failure to take responsibility for your own actions. And it's horrific knowing that these crimes are so hard to prove when they do happen. So to take it to that level of faking a crime and ruining 2 young black men's lives over consensual sex, I don't even have words. And so when she later pled guilty on 2 counts of false reporting an incident and 1 count of interfering with the police, she was sentenced to 3 years with only 1 year that she actually served. And this is not enough. She ruined 2 men. One of them lost their football scholarship. Their lives are ruined. And all she pled guilty to was false reporting.
Yeah, she's like, oh, so I might have lied a little.
Right. Meanwhile, your lie ruined 2 black men's lives.
At least she did get some jail time, though. That's more than most of these people get. They get off scot-free with their terrible behavior. So, at least it's not enough, but it's more than I expected, I guess, for, Alright, so during the sentencing, right, one of the men spoke. I remember he described anxiety, trauma. His life's permanently altered.
And even after the truth came out, the accusations didn't disappear. He didn't get his scholarship back. They didn't have their lives magically restored. And this is what people miss when they say, she just lied. The lie can dismantle someone's future without a single arrest even being made. Again, at no point were they arrested or even held at the police station.
Right, so all they did was have sex at a party, and now their entire future is derailed.
Exactly. Of course they would have anxiety and trauma and their life is altered.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it.
And she gets to go back to living her life.
Right? Without any problem. I'm sure she finished her college degree.
Oh, surely. Oh. All right, let's do Amy Cooper in Central Park in 2020.
I'm sure you all saw this video.
I know you did. We weren't busy in 2020. We were all home. We were watching it. We were watching it. She called 911 on a black birder complaining an African-American man threatened her. I'm sure y'all saw the viral video, that she took. She just became more and more unhinged. She was charged with falsely reporting the incident.
Thank God this man, like, recorded her. Because he's just sitting there minding his own business, and she's coming up, dialing 911. Oh my God, he's threatening me. He's threatening me. He's going to hurt my dog. Meanwhile, she's freaking choking the dog on her leash and not even caring about the dog while on the phone. And this man's literally just standing there as calm and can be, just like saying, like, stop. Basically, I'm not doing anything. I am standing over here. And she just... Tell you what, it was an Academy Award performance.
Them Karen performance videos are always something, aren't they? I mean, this went viral in minutes. I mean, it showed that he was no threat, though. I mean, so I guess really what changed with this case and the other cases is the speed. Like, the lie didn't have time to metastasize. And so that's new, right?
And that's, you know... Thank God for, like, live streaming,
right,
where they could see right away that this poor man did nothing, because God only knows if this would have happened 10 years earlier.
Yeah. Who knows what it could have turned into if we just saw, like, her point of the view on things and what she was saying.
Historical stakes. Emmett Till. So this one is one that gets to me. It's a case I've been looking into for years, and I can't even begin to describe the feelings that it brings up in me. But everything we've talked about so far, every stereotype, every lie, it has a root. And this is where we're going to confront the origins of all of this. Because racial hoaxes aren't a new trend. Everything we talked about in this episode leads here. Because before Susan Smith, before Amy Cooper, there was a 14-year-old boy named Emmett Till.
Everything we've talked about in this episode leads here. I mean, it all leads to this 14-year-old boy, Emmett Till. Emmett Till was from Chicago. He was visiting his family in Money, Mississippi. It was the summer of 1955. We all know Mississippi was a Jim Crow state where black people lived under constant threat of racial violence. And this was a place where even looking at a white woman the wrong way could get a black boy killed.
On August 24th, 1955, Emmett and his cousins went to Bryant's Grocery and Meat Market. There were multiple accounts of what happened next. Black witnesses said Emmett whistled at Carolyn Brandt as she left the store. Carolyn claimed something far more serious, that Emmett grabbed her, threatened her, and made sexual advances. And what matters here is this. She was physically unharmed. But in Jim Crow, Mississippi, the accusation alone was enough.
4 nights later, around 2 a.m., Roy Brandt and his half-brother, J.W. Millen, came to the home where Emmett was staying. They were armed, and they dragged him from his bed while his great-uncle, Moss Wright, begged him to leave the boy alone, and they took him away.
What happened next is not rumor. It's documented. Emmett Till was beaten severely. His body was brutalized. He was shot in the head. But before they tied a heavy metal fan around his neck with barbed wire, and they dumped his body into the Tallahatchie River.
A 14-year-old boy
who did
for nothing. Let's say even if he did like fucking whistle at someone,
right?
Who cares, man?
He whistled at a woman, like.
I mean, I'm against freaking catcalling and all that too, but it's not a fucking death sentence.
Yeah, a 14-year-old to be beaten the way he was, and shot, and covered in barbed wire.
How could a human being do this to other human beings?
Let alone 2 grown men.
To a child.
And a child.
3 days later, his body was pulled from the river, and it was so badly disfigured that he was identified only by a ring on his finger, his father's ring.
Roy Brandt and J.W. Millen were arrested and charged with murder. The trial took less than 4 weeks to reach court. The jury was all white, all male. They deliberated for barely an hour. 1 fucking hour. And they acquitted the killers.
I've taken longer to pick out my drawers than one fucking hour. And they're like, nah, it's fine.
Right?
First of all, how is that a jury of, I mean, you can't have just all fucking white dudes, but I guess you could. I guess you can.
Yeah.
Fucking shit. After the acquittal, Roy Bryant and J.W. Emilium, they sold their story to Look magazine.
Which is bullshit on so many fucking levels.
Just fucking commit a gruesome murder and then sell your story. They openly admitted to murdering Emmett Till. They faced no consequences, and Double Jeopardy protected them.
I can't. And decades later, Carolyn Bryant Dunham admitted the parts of her testimony were false. She told historian Timothy Tyson, "That part's not true," referring to any of the advances. Her lie has already done its work. It took decades for her to say a 14-year-old kid didn't do any of this. And let's remember, she was never harmed in the first place. How as a woman, I don't know if she was the mother or not, but still, how as a woman do you accuse and then essentially condone the torture of a child and then wait decades to be like, yeah, I might have lied about some of this.
Right, she had so much time to step up and make it,
I don't understand it. I can't grasp. And yes, I get it was the 50s and times were different, but humans are still fucking humans. Even and children are children.
Look, the hatred that fills people's hearts, man, it's
right.
Fucking tears me apart.
And the poor mom.
I can't even imagine.
Emmett's mother, Mamie Till Mobley, made a decision that changed history. She insisted on an open casket funeral. She said, "I want the world to see what they did to my boy." The courage she must have had to do that. And the fact that thousands of people filed past his body in Chicago. There are videos of it. Just people waiting in line in the heat to see this. And the horrific state this child was in.
The photographs of Emmett's mutilated body were published in Jet magazine. The graphic images of his disfigured face were seen by millions of people, become an iconic symbol of the horrors of racism and violence in the Jim Crow South. Black families across the country saw the cost of this lie. These images ignited outrage and action.
The murder of Emmett Till became a catalyst for the modern civil rights movement. Rosa Parks would later say that she was thinking of Emmett Till when she refused to give up her seat. It wasn't just a crime. It was a warning. It was a turning point. This is why racial hoaxes are not harmless. They are not misunderstandings. They are deadly. And 14-year-old Emmett Till paid with his life.
See, this is what they mean when they say false accusations kill. Not metaphorically, literally. Historical memory matters. False accusations are not just lies. They can reshape public policy and scar communities for generations. Today's hoaxes tap the same type of stereotypes, and vigilance is essential.
And it's such a sad state to know that from 1955 till as recent as 2024, the same shit is happening.
Same shit, different year.
We're just so lucky that it hasn't been another 14-year-old boy. But God only knows, it's probably a matter of time.
The way the shit's going. Alright, so why racial hoaxes work and what they break. So at this point, we've talked through a lot of cases, different decades, different settings, but the same basic structure keeps repeating. And I think the question listeners are probably asking now is, why does this keep happening? Not why just would someone lie, but why does this lie work so reliably?
Right, because when you line these stories up, Susan Smith, Bonnie Sweeten, Nikki Jovino, Amy Cooper, even the poor story of Emmett, it's not like these lies are especially creative. They're actually pretty bare bones. And yet the response is immediate and intense every time.
Exactly. And when psychologists and legal scholars, when they study racial hoaxes, the first thing they point out is these aren't impulsive or random lies. they tend to show up in moments of pressure. They're moments where someone is scared, they're cornered, they're facing consequences.
So why do people make racial hoax accusations? One of the clearest explanations comes from Catherine Russell Brown. The legal scholar found that these accusations almost always happen when a person making them needs an escape hatch. They're trying to redirect tension away from themselves.
And when you look at our cases, the pattern's hard to miss. Susan Smith was facing the reality of having killed her children. Bonnie Sweden was facing fraud charges. Nikki Yvonne later admitted she panicked and she was afraid of losing social standing in a relationship.
What's important here is that the racial part of the lie isn't about hatred in the moment. Supposedly. It's about utility. Race becomes a tool. Accusations don't have to be detailed. It just has to point in a direction that the system already knows it can run with.
Right, because, a lie doesn't succeed on its own. It succeeds because it plugs into something that already exists. Stupid-ass racism.
Yep, this is the uncomfortable part. Racial hoaxes work because the culture has spent generations building the stereotype. The idea of the dangerous black man is already sitting there, waiting. So when someone says, a black man did it, they're not inventing fear from scratch. They're activating a fear that's already been normalized by media, by history, and by police practices.
And that's why so many of these hoaxes don't even bother naming a specific person. The race alone is treated like enough information, which is terrifying when you think about that, because, that means accusations don't even need evidence. They just need familiarity.
And then there's another layer too, which psychologists talk about a lot. The idea of victimhood as a kind of social shield. In our culture, being seen as a victim comes with protection, sympathy, moral authority, and impunity, less scrutiny. And in some cases, in 99% of the cases, that's the way it should be. We believe, here at this podcast, we believe victims.
Yeah, if you're a victim.
Right.
Okay, so when the victim identity is overlapping with whiteness, especially like white womanhood, the story becomes a lot harder to challenge. Questioning it feels inappropriate or cruel. So skepticism, it shuts down early, the system moves fast, and by the time anyone starts asking any harder questions, the damage is done already.
And I want to be really clear here. This isn't about saying police officers or journalists are uniquely evil or stupid. It's about human psychology. Once investigators hear a story that fits what they expect, confirmation bias kicks in. It's a well-documented cognitive bias where people unconsciously seek information that supports an initial belief and discounts anything that challenges it.
And race makes that bias stronger, not weaker, because studies show black men are more likely to be perceived as suspicious and dangerous before any evidence is ever considered. So a racial hoax doesn't feel like extraordinary to the system. It feels plausible, familiar, and it fits the mental template.
And then the media amplifies it. Early reporting often repeats police narratives verbatim before verification. And by the time a correction happens, the story has already hardened in the public mind. And let's be honest, most people don't even hear the correction or know that something else has changed. They just know Susan Smith's kids were kidnapped by a black man.
Oh, especially today in our social media universe, because the stories change so quickly. We don't even remember what happened then. We're on to something else,
Exactly.
So you don't hear the correction.
So you remember the crime, but you don't know the outcome,
Right,
especially with false accusations.
Exactly. And this is where I think we need to slow it down, because people who pay the highest price for this are the ones who didn't lie at all.
There's a major body of research on this, including a systematic review out of King's College London that looked at the psychological impact of these kind of wrongful accusations. And the findings are devastating. PTSD, severe anxiety, depression, loss of anxiety, and of course, who can blame them? And what really stands out is that these effects often don't go away even once a person is cleared, because being exonerated doesn't reset your nervous system. It doesn't erase the months or years of being treated like a threat, or the way people look at you afterward.
I know, can you imagine? You didn't do anything, people still look at you like you're a monster for no reason?
Right, because when
not to mention all the trauma of, like, having to be arrested, having to go through these court trials,
Exactly. Like, when you're being accused, you're front page news. When you're exonerated, it's buried in the back.
Right, no one even notices. In that Nikki Ivano case, the two men were never arrested, but they still lost their scholarships. They had to withdraw from school. I mean, they have lasting anxiety and trauma. And when you trace this pattern back historically to Emmett Till, you'll see the most extreme version of the truth. Sometimes the accusation itself is the punishment.
So that brings us to the legal question. What recourse do the wrongly accused have? On paper, there are options. Filing a false police report is a crime in every U.S. state. Additional charges can include perjury and obstruction of justice. We saw that play out with Nikki Ivano. She pled guilty to false reporting and interfering with police, but criminal accountability is inconsistent, and it's often the exception rather than the rule.
Right? Just more commonly, justice, if it comes at all, happens through civil lawsuits, defamation, malice prosecution, emotional distress, sometimes civil rights claims. But the problem is that civil justice is slow, expensive, and emotionally draining. Many people never even file. Others settle quietly. And even a legal win, rarely restores a reputation. Money doesn't undo trauma, and it doesn't make the internet forget, and it doesn't give back someone the years they lost. It certainly doesn't give back a life.
No, it doesn't. And think about it. How many civil cases do you actually remember hearing or, like, remembering the outcome? So you're going to remember the front page that says, suspect or, wanted in relationship to this, but you're not going to remember, hey, this person was wrongly accused and sued this person and won, because civil suits aren't news.
And then even if you do win civil suits, like I said, people often don't believe it.
Right.
How many people?
Oh, you had a good lawyer.
People settle out of court and they're like, oh, that's just proof that,
Or you settle out of court and there's an NDA, so you can't talk about it.
Right.
So then nobody knows, what happened. And these people have lost years of their lives and entire futures, or literally lost their life. Because I'm going to just keep hammering home. This happened to a 14-year-old boy.
It's not the only one.
So why does this all matter? When you zoom out, Rachel hoaxes aren't just lies about individual crimes. They're stress tests for our institutions. They reveal whose fear is taken seriously, whose pain is believed, and whose lives are treated as expendable in the name of a convenient story.
Until we confront the psychology that makes these lies effective and the systems that reward them, they're just going to keep working. And the cost is going to keep landing on the same communities. That's why this isn't just about accountability for individual hoaxes. It's about changing the conditions to make the hoax believable in the first place. So to wrap up, when we started this episode, we talked about lies, individual lies, specific cases, names, dates, headlines. But what we've really been talking about is trust. Who gets it automatically, and who has to earn it over and over and over again? Because racial hoaxes don't work in a vacuum. They work because they plug into a system that already assumes certain people are dangerous, and certain people are telling the truth.
From Susan Smith to Nikki Ivano to Amy Cooper, the pattern stays the same. A moment of fear or self-preservation turns into a lie, and that lie carries consequences beyond the person who told it. And when you trace the pattern back far enough, you end up at Emmett, a child whose life was taken not because of what he did, but because of what people were willing to believe. And not much has changed.
This is why it isn't just about false reports or bad actors. It's about the conditions that make these accusations believable in the first place. The stereotypes, the bias, the rush to protect one story at the expense of another.
For the people who are falsely accused, there's no reset button. Even when the truth comes out, the trauma lingers. The reputation doesn't fully recover. The system rarely makes them whole. And that's the real cost of a social hoax. Not just wasted resources and bad headlines, but lives permanently altered or destroyed by a lie that should have never worked in the first place. Racial hoaxes don't just hurt the falsely accused. They warp trust. They drain resources. They make real victims harder to believe. And they remind us that lies don't have equal consequences.
So, if there's one thing we hope you take from this episode, it's this. Skepticism isn't cruelty. Asking questions isn't betrayal. And believing victims doesn't mean abandoning critical thinking. It means understanding how power, race, and fear intersect and refusing to let those forces decide whose pain matters. Racial hoaxes aren't just lies. They're shortcuts through a biased system. And until that system changes, the damage will keep landing on the same people.
And if, like it has for us, if this episode has brought up difficult emotions for you, we've linked support and advocacy resources in our show notes. And if it made you uncomfortable, that's okay. Growth usually is.
You've been listening to Seriously Sus with Nanette and Miranda. And thanks for sitting with us through this one. And remember, stay informed, stay critical, and stay sus.
You've just tuned in to Seriously Sus with Nanette Miranda, your ultimate source of sus with side-eye. Thanks for hanging out with us. If today's episode made you think twice, hit that like button, subscribe, and follow Seriously Sus podcast for more deep dives into crime trends, drama, and cultural chaos. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay sus.